It's movie night, and we're back with another M. Night Shyamalan from best to worst films he's directed. This is number 7 of my personal opinion in this countdown. If you want to see all the prior entries, go down to the description box. All of the prior entries are below. Number 7 is After Earth, starring Will Smith as Cypher Rage and his son, Jaden Smith, who also plays his son in the movie, Katai Rage. Who Katai in the film was supposed to be 9 years old, and that's one of my biggest flaws in the movie right there, is that he clearly is not a 9-year-old kid. He's clearly a lot older than 9 years old. And if that was what they were trying to go with, that's a head scratcher right off the bat. This movie feels like it was directed by Will Smith, not by M. Night Shyamalan. There are a few scenes I can look at it and say, yeah, M. Night directed this film. But for the most part, in my opinion, about 90% of the film, you cannot tell M. Night Shyamalan directed this film. There is no big twist in this movie. There is no wild things that when you go back to rewatch it, kind of hits you in the face and say, oh, I didn't catch that the first time. It makes the movie better the second time. Something that M. Night Shyamalan does so well. Not present in this movie. If you watch the bonus features on the home video, you even see a lot of the shooting days, Will Smith is in complete control of the set. He's directing his son, he's directing cinematographer, he's directing the action, he's basically doing everything but saying he's the director of the film, which he clearly is. He's basically the director. I don't even know why they needed M. Night Shyamalan to direct this film, because it clearly has Will Smith's fingerprints all over it. The story of this movie I personally like, which is why it's number 7 and not dead last. And I am a science fiction nerd, so worked with me. What didn't work for me was the characters. For one, I am not a Jaden Smith fan. I don't know what it is about him. I just don't think he's that good of an actor. Will Smith, he is obviously a world-class, perfect actor at times, depending on what material he has. And this material he had in this film to work with is head scratcher to me. I do not understand, because this story was written by Will Smith and he wanted to do this. I don't understand why he pushed for this movie so hard and why he wanted to do it, because outside of a few things that I find science fiction wise to be very, very good, all the rest of it is complete trash. The dialogue in this movie is some of the worst dialogue I have ever heard in my entire life. I do not understand how they thought this movie was going to work on shooting days with them speaking the way that they did. It just doesn't make any sense. Jaden Smith's accent is all over the place. He does the opening narration and he has this very strange accent that you can't quite make out what it is, which is fine. And we're going to get to a second of why that is, because human beings aren't on Earth anymore, obviously. They're on another planet and human speech has kind of evolved. But there's a reason why his speech is that way. It just doesn't make any sense, because he doesn't keep it throughout the whole movie. I counted numerous times where his accent is completely gone and he's talking like somebody who's from Los Angeles. It breaks continuity. From scene to scene, it does not match. You can tell during the shoot, he probably worked on it more and more and he got a little more comfortable with it. But there are times where, especially, which is weird, because my favorite part of the movie is when he's confronting his father about fear. Aliens have come to Earth and they have essentially forced the human race to abandon the Earth. And they have these creatures called Ursas who feed upon fear. And as we know, human beings are very fearful beings. So these creatures nearly wipes out the human race. The only people who got away were the people who were involved with the Nova Corps, which are run by what they call the United Ranger Corps. And this corps takes the remaining humans, the ones that survived, and they have to flee Earth, and they go to another planet that has different properties. It's a little more denser. It's not quite like Earth. It's a rocky planet, and they basically restart civilization there. There's a heavy Asian and American influence of cultures that blend together, China in particular, that blends together. And in cinematography and the production design and the wardrobe, you can see that there's an Asian and American blend, which is kind of unique because that brought some realism to it. The problem is with this is that because these creatures wipes out all the humans basically from Earth and have to rebuild on this other planet, I think what they were trying to go with in the film was that these are humans, but they've been gone from Earth so long that we can't really identify with them so well. That they've turned into almost a different evolved species of human, and not to a certain extent. It's very slight, right to the point. Again, with the accents, the way people talk, and Will Smith. This is the first movie we see where he doesn't make any jokes. He doesn't smile. He doesn't laugh. He doesn't cry. He has no emotion, and that's because he is devoid of fear. He is what they call people who basically face these Ursas face to face. They call it ghosting, and only those humans who can ghost basically are completely invisible to these Ursas who cannot see them because they have no fear. So if you have no fear, you cannot die with one of these creatures. And he's trying to teach his son how to do that. Will Smith is one of the only people who can do it. And it's a very unique concept. It's not something we haven't seen before. But the problem is there's a mission that he goes with his son. Will Smith's relationship with his son in the film, he is a horrible father. He has no way to interact with his kid because he's just so focused on the Ranger Corps and being this hero, this person, who has ghosting obviously down into his DNA to the point where he's almost not even human. He comes off very robotic, and it's by design. He's doing it on purpose. Will Smith is acting wise to portray the fact that he has no fear. He basically has no emotions. The tie-in with this, obviously, with his emotions cut off, is that Katai is not his only child. He also had a daughter who was killed by one of these Ursas while Katai watched. And in a sense, Katai feels like his father blames him for this. And you do get a sense that he does. That Cypher does blame his son for not taking action against the Ursa when his daughter was killed. And they have a very rocky, weird relationship. It's very forced. You could tell Will probably did not love his son as much as he loved his daughter, and that's a good dynamic in the film. It just, there's no payoff because the acting of Jaden Smith, the way that he talks about it, you can tell that he is still learning how to be an actor, and it's just not polished. But it ties into my favorite scene, which is again weird to me because my favorite scene in the movie is when he is standing out on this ledge and he basically confronts his father, and he shows some emotion and he tears up and he's very emotional, even though the accent's gone. I thought he did that pretty well. It did come across very genuine to me, and I felt that every time I watch that scene, it just does something to me. I think that's one of the rare scenes in the movie where he does a great job. That being said, there are tons of people who say that's their worst scene in the film. So that's the kind of film that this is. Either you love it or you hate it. I don't think that there's any really wiggle room in there. Do I love this movie? Personally, it is a guilty pleasure film. I don't think it's a horrible film. I just think it's so poorly executed and you don't care about the characters that it's insane. The marketing in this film was misleading. You think that Will Smith and his son are going to be on this planet together, going on this adventure, and that is not the case. Will Smith is hurt. They go on this mission in one of the ships. It is damaged. It ends up going through a wormhole, and they're sent back to Earth. And Earth has evolved to kill all humans, everything, all the plants, all the animals, everything on Earth, even the weather, which changes instantly from being very hot and tropical to extremely cold and Arctic, literally in hours in some places. It's just that science part of it I love. I love the animals, the evolution of the baboons, some of the cats and the eagles are freaking huge. It's the evolution of the planet itself, Earth. I loved it. They nailed it. It is gorgeous. It is a gorgeous film. That's one thing you can never say about M. Night Shyamalan. He shoots very, very beautiful cinematic films. And the cinematography in this film, the color correction is great. The sound design is pretty good. The music is James Newton Howard. The score is kind of unforgettable. But for the most part, the movie itself, when it does sci-fi stuff, it does very good. It's when the acting comes in that's weird. Will Smith does not go on this mission. He gets hurt and he's basically stuck in this ship with his legs broken. And he has to communicate. The ship's torn in half. He sends Katai off to find the beacon so they can get help, which is in the tail end of the ship, which is hundreds of miles away. And Katai is sent off by his father to go do this mission, to go grab this beacon so they can get out of there. And People wanted to see Will Smith more in this movie, and Will Smith, again, he doesn't laugh, he doesn't cry, he has no emotion, no fear of anything, and that is a bit of a problem because you end up not really liking him very much, and he treats his son like shit. So that makes it even worse. He is a very unlikable character in this movie. This character Will Smith plays is by far the most unlikable Will Smith character I have ever seen. You just don't like this guy, and you don't care about him, which helps you see Katai's point of view. But in the end, Katai as a character, he's just this kid running around experiencing Earth and all these things trying to kill him, and you never get this sense that he's ever really gonna die. And that's another problem with the film, is that because you only have essentially two characters in the film, you need somebody to feel like they're in mortal danger, and they're not. You get that backstory with his daughter dying, and I guess that's a bit of something you can take to say, okay, at least somebody was in danger in this movie, because you know they were never going to kill off Jaden Smith in this movie, and you knew they weren't going to kill Will Smith in this movie, so there was no real danger there. You had to watch the movie and just enjoy the science fiction aspect of it, which I do. But I can understand completely why a lot of people fucking hate this movie, because there's no point to it. That the way that this goes, the whole payoff is that his son becomes a ghost. He wants to be a ranger like his father. His father thinks he needs more work, and Katai is doing everything he can to do this. But you really don't get the sense that it matters at any rate, because there's no plot to the story. Jaden Smith does such a better job of acting when he's not talking, because again, when that accent comes in and it's here and it's gone, that is a major distraction. I found myself every time he talked checking to see if he still had his accent, and that's not what you want to do with a character. The quieter moments, the moments I feel like M. Night Shyamalan actually had his hands on, when there's nothing going on but just this atmosphere of this planet, and Jaden Smith's walking around and exploring this planet, those are some of the best elements of the film. And that aspect of it, I could not get enough of. I loved all the exploring, the animals, the cinematography, the everything, the environments. It all worked for me. We just don't have enough of those to make this film a great film, or even a good film. It's a solid film. It's something I would watch if I was sick and just laying in bed. If it's on, I'll watch it. But it's not something you're going to remember. It's not something that has enough storytelling elements for you to emotionally care about this. And Will Smith's character comes off as such an asshole to his son. You would think that for Will Smith's character, just the fact that his son, having witnessed his sister die by one of these Ursas, is even still interested in being a ranger, still interested in mastering ghosting after seeing that. That should be enough for him to embrace his son and love him no matter what. And he doesn't. This little kid has to do more than just want to be a ranger and want to master ghosting. Until he does it, it's almost like his father disapproves of him. And that makes that character just a horrible character, and there's no growth. At the end of the movie, his son masters ghosting by facing up against this Ursa, who is again preying upon the fearful, and this little boy is scared out of his mind, running around. You knew something was going to happen, and when it happened, you realized, of course, he's going to master ghosting once he meets up with this creature, and that's exactly what he does. And once he gets back to the ship and he finds his father, they set the beacon. Now his father is ready to accept him after all this. And it's almost like a rite of passage story. I understand it to a certain extent, but I think they went a little bit too far with Will Smith's character being that cold. It almost comes off as if he's not even human. There was times when I first saw this film that I was thinking in my head, is the twist in this movie they're going to reveal that this dude's actually a robot? That's how bad it was. And I know what Will Smith was going for, but he's a good enough actor where he could have played it, I think, a little differently, to the point where he needed to figure out a way for us to care about his character too. It could not just be Katai that we cared about, because for all intents and purposes, we didn't care about him either, because we never felt like he was in any danger, because he's the kid, and he's Will Smith's son, and Will Smith's in this movie. How often does Will Smith die in movies? You can count maybe a couple movies he actually dies in. Will Smith doesn't die in movies. In fact, the only one that comes to mind is I Am Legend, where he actually dies at the end of that movie. He just doesn't die. So you know he's not going to die. And you're not going to kill off the kid in this film. So there was really no danger. So I think in the end of the day with this story, I recommend it to people who love science fiction because they're going to get the most out of it. They're going to get the most value out of this movie from beginning to end and be able to ignore some of the horrible acting. But if you're coming here for story, there is none. There is no story. There's nothing to really talk about other than that's interesting. This is interesting. That could have been interesting. That almost worked. It's a lot of that. There's things that are tried and work very well, but they're gone in a flash, and then it's back to the same old monotonous tread of trying to get through this film. And at times it is tough. It is a very slow, quiet film. And unfortunately, when you have films like this where you're telling the audience this is going to be a big action adventure, and when they get into the movie and they realize instantly that it's more of a drama than anything, that is disappointing to people, and I can understand why they give them 2 thumbs down. I'm not going to give this movie 2 thumbs down. I'm going to give it 1 thumbs up, 1 thumbs down. It could have been a lot better, but love science fiction, you'll love After Earth. See you all on the next movie night. Take care.